Welcome, everyone. We see that we have many attendees that are joining us. Thank you. We'll get started in just a few minutes. I see so many friendly names of attendees today. Thank you for joining our webinar on strategic school staffing. Like I said, we'll get started in just a few. So feel free to settle in. You're in for a treat today as we welcome leaders from the field to share their expertise with us. Let a few more people join us. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome again, everybody. We're so excited that you're here. My name is Ashley Osborne. I'm a senior partner with the National Center for Grow Your Own, and I have the privilege of moderating today's session. Before we get started, I'd like to share that the National Center for Grow Your Own will be hosting another webinar on June 11th at 2 p.m. Eastern, titled Building Momentum, State Spotlights on Teacher Registered Apprenticeship Expansion, where we will showcase state education agencies who are paving the way in teacher registered apprenticeship expansion. So if you'd like to register, we invite you to do so. I'm actually going to, thanks Ben for putting in the chat the registration for that. We're excited to welcome these leaders in the teacher registered apprenticeship space to discuss more about how they are expanding their reach. So let's kick off today's session though. As I mentioned, we're thrilled to host today's webinar that brings together innovative ideas and real-world examples from the field to help us rethink how we design and sustain our educator workforce. We're excited to have you here and look forward to a great presentation and an awesome conversation. Before I introduce and we welcome our esteemed guest, I'd like to take the opportunity to share a little more about National Center for Grow Your Own. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides technical assistance to state agencies, state apprenticeship agencies, local education agencies such as school districts that are interested in launching or expanding Grow Your Own or registered apprenticeship programs for aspiring educators. These programs are able to address educator shortages while improving quality and retention. Our founder, David Donaldson, served as the lead author for the U.S. Department of Labor to get the teacher occupation eligible for registered apprenticeship, and then launched the first teacher registered apprenticeship program while at the Tennessee Department of Education. Since then, he has led the successful effort to approve K-12 principal occupation as well. Today, our team is proud to serve as the first and largest intermediary for K-12 educator apprenticeships in the country. It's our mission to create a world where you can become a teacher for free and get paid to do so. So when we think of strategic staffing and strategic school staffing and the strategies that can be employed by organizations to help mitigate talent challenges, strategic school staffing often comes to mind, and today we're excited to explore this topic more. In preparation for today, I actually asked ChatGPT for a comprehensive definition of strategic school staffing, and you can see the result here on the screen. Strategic school staffing refers to the intentional design, allocation, and management of human capital within a school or district to ensure every student has access to high-quality instruction. Really moves beyond that traditional staffing model to align talent with student needs, school goals, and instructional priorities. So in many respects, it does go beyond just filling vacancies, whether through multi-educator teams, embedded apprenticeships, or differentiated educator roles. Strategic staffing is a lever for instructional quality. To further articulate this and provide those real-world examples, we're thrilled again to be joined today by leaders who are pioneering this work in districts and states across our country. Today, we'll hear from the team at the Mary Lou Fulton College for Teaching and Learning Innovation, as well as the team from Public Impact. So to kick us off, I'd like to introduce our partners from the Mary Lou Fulton College for Teaching and Learning Innovation who are the creators of the Next Education Workforce Initiative. They are leaders in transforming how schools think about staffing and educator support. First, we have Dr. Brent Madden, Executive Director of Next Education Workforce. Brent works across ASU and with P12 partners to redesign school models using teams of educators with distributed expertise, ensuring deeper, more personalized learning for his students. His work also focuses on creating more sustainable and equitable pathways into and through the teaching profession. And before joining ASU, Brent co-founded and served as provost at Relay Graduate School of Education and launched Teacher Squared, a national collaboration hub for teacher preparation. Just a few things, Brent, right? Joining Brent today is Dr. Lennon Audrain, a research assistant professor, also with ASU's Mary Lou Fulton College, Teachers College. Lennon leads educator pathways, innovation, and policy initiatives for the next education workforce. A former teacher and national leader in education preparation, he brings expertise in grow your own programs, team-based staffing models, and native teacher pathways. He also serves as the executive board president of the National Association for Community College Teacher Education Programs. So please help me in welcoming Brent and Lennon. Brent, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Ashley. Appreciate that introduction. Benjamin, others, National Center for Grow Your Own. Thank you for having us. Thanks for creating a time and space for this incredibly important information. And of course, our friends and colleagues from Public Impact Opportunities Culture, Ashley, Brian, it's so fun to be here with you. We're talking about strategic school staffing, and I think that it's helpful to do just a little bit more table setting on this for both of the models that you'll see today. And so as we think about it, there's a work by Education First and a very nice wheel or a framework that helps us to really position this work of strategic school staffing, and each of those words is important. And this larger wheel here, this is thank you, Lennon. Education First did a heck of a job of putting together a landscape scan where they looked at what are the common characteristics across models that are doing strategic school staffing. And you saw this just like going around the wheel here, this idea of distributed leadership and compensation structures differentiated by roles, the innovative teaming structures, extending the reach of some of our best teachers. We'll certainly hear that about both of our models today. These staffing structures, I'm in the red, that intentionally cultivate teacher pipelines. And as we think about the National Center for Grow Your Own, the work that you're doing, this to me is really lit up in this conversation. And Lennon will highlight some of that as we look at the models. Then, of course, in an era of technology that optimizes a whole bunch of things, including educator roles and time, ChatGPT and AI, and just all sorts of other forms of technology. And of course, this is happening within the larger set of enabling conditions. Brent, this is great. Thanks for sharing this. What the heck does this actually look like when we operationalize it? And that's what we've been doing at the Next Education Workforce, is really trying to build what we think of as teams, put the kids in the middle, and build teams of educators. Notice I didn't just say teachers, teams of educators around them with distributed expertise. And that when you do that, you're providing all students with deeper and personalized learning, and it makes that job way more doable. It also, I believe, in so doing, creates opportunities for educators to better specialize, enter the profession in new ways, advance in new ways. And I think that you'll see aspects and elements of that in both our model and in opportunity culture in just a second. So let's actually look at this. Let's operationalize this framework. So imagine in your minds a third grade educator team. This is, normally you might have 4 educators sharing, say, or not even sharing, 4 educators, each with 25 kids, 100 kids total, behind a door on a hallway, 25 kids, 1 teacher. And what we are doing is we're actively working, again, put the kids in the middle, build a team around them that allows us to deepen and personalize learning. And so in some of our models, and I think it's important to say that not all of our models have the same configuration, but they share some common aspects. Many of them have this position that we think of as a lead teacher. And so then that when you click once more, we see how this is, highlighting the characteristics from this framework of strategic school staffing, this idea of distributed leadership and extending the reach of our best teachers. And then as we complexify or build a little more to this model, and then we add in a couple of other teachers, maybe they have greater specialization in particular aspects of the job. And these are some of the innovative teaming structures. And then we continue to add to these models. For example, if you click one more time, and once again, we've got something like artificial intelligence. Again, it could be student facing or it could be teacher facing or both. This is the incorporation of technology. When we think about strategic school staffing models, we've got AI that's now part of, in some ways, these teams. And if we keep going and we look at, maybe some new roles, this idea of a student success coach. Our friends at City Year have these sorts of positions within their models. These are new ways to enter the profession. They have differentiated compensation. Maybe the people are showing up live and in person, but maybe we're leveraging technology again in ways to bring them into the learning environments. But this could be one former teacher contract may actually be reconfigured in other ways, especially in environments where it's really hard to find and staff roles. We're not done yet. We can continue to add to these models. A number of the school partners with whom we work have community educators involved. Again, maybe new ways to enter the profession, and certainly part of an innovative teaming structure. These could be members of our community. They could be high school tutors. Lennon may talk about high school students coming into our models. They may be members of families. They may be representatives from business and mentors. They could be project-based mentors. They could also be tutors. They could also be near-peer support. The idea here is that we are challenging this notion of the one teacher, one classroom model, and instead bringing a team of educators. Another one of those types of educators that we're all fairly familiar with are para-educators. And this idea of, well, what if they were able to upskill in really particular ways? And this could be part of apprenticeship programs. Lennon will say more about this, whether that's live and in person, or whether that's coming together around kids in other formats, online. In this case, a digital learning facilitator may be facilitating live synchronous instructors who may not be in the building, but this is an upskilled role for our para-educators. Again, extending the reach, helping to extend the reach of some of our best teachers and creating new pathways into and through the profession. They might be digital learning facilitators that might look like something else. And so let's continue to add to the model. Some of our teams, when they're large enough, we have special educators that are serving as full-time members of those teams. Again, extending our teacher reach. Ensuring that we've got really kind of innovative teaming structures in place here, that we, are no longer expecting all of our educators to be so well versed in all aspects of special education. But in fact, by bringing that specialist full-time onto a team, it just radically changes the way that we can create universal design for learning. We can continue to add to the picture. And I'm especially interested in, teacher residents, apprentices, who could be playing really complementary roles in these models. And so here, all of this is happening in the larger context of these enabling conditions, which include flexibilities from the district in terms of policy or strong leadership at the level of the school sites. And all of this comes together to create, again, a team of educators wrapped around a shared roster of kids. Now, this doesn't happen just in third grade. We've got models, 150 schools in 50 school systems across about 17 states, who have all built variations on a theme of these models. And if you boiled it all down into a single equation, what we would see would be something like this. If you have the same teachers who are sharing the same roster of kids during the same block of time, which is often 2, 3, 4 hours, you can get some wildly different outcomes for both educators and for learners. And we'll talk more about that in a sec. What I would say is that if you're looking to put this on a hook in your brain, that we are talking about a paradigm shift in the way that we staff schools, from teachers of record to teams of record. And Lyndon is going to briefly describe what is possible when we do that.
Sure, thanks, Brent. And as we think about shifting the paradigm from teachers of record to teams of record, you might recognize the structure because this is the structure that exists in your local context where teachers are literally doing the same thing next door to each other for their own roster of students. And so what we really think about is shifting from it being teacher A's 25, teacher B's, teacher C's, teacher D's, to this idea of having two different teams potentially, right? This is just a one chili pepper model on our next slide. Where the third grade team is now split up and is sharing 50 students. Teacher A and B are now responsible for the shared outcomes of those 50 students. Teacher C and D are now also responsible. And notice that their roles and responsibilities actually were able to be distributed because they were sharing a common roster of students. So this is a one chili pepper version. But the next slide, we actually have what we call a two chili pepper version. We are in the Southwest, of course, at ASU. And so in this two chili pepper version, four teachers actually share a larger roster of 100 students. And we think that this actually unlocks some degree of innovation. On the next slide, you'll see what is likely, most elementary school classrooms where these dots, imagine that there are around 25 students, remain in that classroom all day long with that teacher. Now imagine maybe the teacher in the bottom right-hand corner is a first-year teacher, the teacher in the top left-hand corner is a veteran teacher, and we're just hoping that those two teachers can do the exact same job with equal efficiency and effectiveness for third grade. This is an important time for reading instruction and students' ability to read and do math. And so now we're thinking on the next slide, you'll see how not only when we have this educator team, we can think about structures for this team to work together, but also how we might see them in registered apprentice roles. So on this slide, maybe teacher C doesn't want to quite leave the classroom, and they actually want to be a lead teacher instead of leaving for administration. And so maybe potentially we have a lead teacher registered apprenticeship. The para-educator who's now on this team now doesn't have just one mentor, although they will absolutely have one mentor who is responsible for the quality of their mentoring experience. But now imagine what the registered apprenticeship experience looks like if you actually have four different people who are mentoring you. Teacher A has now become a lead teacher. Again, for this teacher, instead of leaving the classroom to become an administrator so that they can earn some more money, they've actually become a lead teacher that is leading maybe some of the instructional responsibilities on this team. And then on the very far right-hand side, we have a community educator. This is actually, you can think of them as even high school students, right? Brent mentioned high school students for 2 years. I taught a Grow Your Own High School program. And so if you're thinking about the stackable pathway for a registered apprentice, think about how high schoolers might even be able to stack from, youth or CTE apprenticeships into para-educator apprenticeships, right? And then para-educators into teacher into lead teacher, and then lead teacher even into principal, which isn't pictured here. But the next slide illustrates a little bit of this kind of movement. And so you can just click through them and we can see, so this, on the first row, you see a community educator, maybe it's a high schooler who's in a teacher assistant apprenticeship. Now they're able to move to a para-educator. In that second column, you're actually seeing, a para-educator who's now, because of the teacher registered apprenticeship, able to move into a professional educator role. And then on the last one, a professional educator who's actually able to become a lead teacher via potentially a lead teacher registered apprenticeship or a registered teacher apprentice, a registered principal apprenticeship rather. And so we've actually created a really robust set of pathways via the registered apprenticeship for people to move through teams. But the question is, how do teams actually work? Well, so breakfast and advisory might look the same as it does in elementary classrooms all day long. But now if we notice on the next slide, we actually are able to regroup those students from, the lead teacher only having that group of blue students. And you can notice these people with kind of the yellow halos around, and just think about the type of registered apprentice experience they might be having. That teacher in the corner, in the top right-hand corner, is able to start thinking about what high quality instructional delivery looks like because they've been apprenticing with that lead teacher. That para-educator is now actually exposed to two different teachers. On the next slide, you'll see that this is now some time for common planning. And maybe in these meetings that lead teacher registered apprentice is actually taking on a little bit of running a team meeting while the para-educator goes to specials with students. On the next slide, a reading block where now you actually have brought in one of those high school students who's maybe trained up in the science of reading, and they're in a youth CTE pathway. But now you have, and you can see this top part of the classroom setup is actually full of registered apprentices in different roles and in different pathways that have now come around students. You'll also notice in that bottom corner, the lead teacher. Let's say they're probably the most qualified person for reading instruction or the best person on their team for that is actually working with a smaller set of students, and that teacher right next to them also has a smaller group of students. So students are actually able to get targeted support. On the next slide, you'll see an all-team meeting where the teacher registered apprentice, the lead teacher registered apprentice are all able to come and be exposed to all the students all at once, only for 20 minutes a day, right? Just as a grounding exercise for the entire team. And then on the next slide in science, you can see that now that lead teacher is being exposed to that teacher resident and the lead teacher resident apprentice at the same time so that they're able to co-teach. And so finally, for these headline outcomes, we just wanted to give you an illustration of what the dynamic grouping looks like. On the next slide, I'll drop in the chat just some of our big headline outcomes for you so that you're able to see how our models increase retention for our lead teachers, increase student achievement in both reading and Algebra 1, or are associated with increases. And then lead to greater job satisfaction. But I'm going to pass it back over to Ashley now. Thank you for having us today.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Brent and Lennon, for that insightful presentation. I really love the fact that you incorporated all different kind of pathways or entry points into the profession. As you mentioned, they could be stackable onto one another. So that's great. We look forward to hearing more from Brent and Lennon later in the session. For now, though, we are going to introduce our next partners from Public Impact who bring deep expertise and leadership to this work. So first we have Dr. Brian Hassel, co-president of Public Impact and co-leader of the Opportunity Culture Initiative. Brian is a national expert on school choice, charter school excellence, and educator effectiveness. He has advised leaders at all levels, from state officials to foundation executives, and has served on national commissions, including the White House Commission on Excellence in Special Education. His recent work focuses on helping schools extend the reach of excellent teachers and supporting state strategies to improve chronically low-performing schools. And joining him is Ashley Williams, Assistant Vice President of Innovation and Specialty Services at Public Impact. Ashley leads national efforts to expand opportunity culture models and brings firsthand experience as a former multi-classroom leader, which I'm sure you'll learn more about in just a minute, and data specialist. She has led teacher leadership initiatives and now guides implementation across districts in North Carolina, Virginia, Texas, and Illinois. Her recent work includes co-designing self-driven design modules and launching innovative leadership roles in remote settings. So please welcome or help me in welcoming Brian and Ashley. And Ashley, I'm going to toss it to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ashley. All right, so we're really glad to be here with you today to share more about the Opportunity Culture Initiative. One thing I always share with people is that the Opportunity Culture Initiative is not simply, it's just not a program that comes to schools. A lot of educators are used to programs kind of floating in and out of their schools, but instead what we share is that this is a commitment. So if you can go to the next slide there, it's a commitment really to do two things. First, it's a commitment to reach all students with excellent teaching consistently and to reach all educators with outstanding paid career opportunities, both of which lead to dramatically higher learning growth for students. Right? So, opportunity culture models are built on three key elements that really work together to create meaningful results for students in schools. So, that first pillar is the multi classroom leadership model. So, in this role, we have an excellent teacher called a multi classroom leader. This is someone with a strong track record of student learning growth, and they lead a small team of teachers. They continue teaching while they coach their teammates, and they also take responsibility for the team student outcomes. In doing so, they earn significantly more for expanding their reach. And this role is what we call the foundation of an opportunity culture team. That second building block is the team reach model. Every teacher on an MCO's team is able to earn more because they are reaching more students and impacting more students without increasing their class sizes. And so that is really made possible through smart scheduling and the support of paraprofessionals who can also earn more in these roles. And it's really a model that values scaling and great teaching. And third, OC teams make a school-wide tutoring culture possible. So every adult can be involved in providing small group instruction more often to more students. So that means that students are getting individualized attention that they need to thrive. And all of this is funded by rethinking how existing school budgets are used. So within those regular school budgets, no extra dollars required. Opportunity culture models have been implemented for over a decade in schools across over a dozen states. And so I'm now going to pass it over to Brian, who will share more about how these models are showing up for students and educators.
Thanks, Ashley. And as the other Ashley noted, you were yourself a multi-classroom leader teacher in your school. So we may be able to hear more from you about that role as the questions and answers come in. But I just wanted to give a few numbers here that show what's going on with this opportunity culture model around the country. So we've been at it for about 11 years. They're currently reaching about 200,000 students in hundreds of schools around the country in this year. And that's a big number in some ways, but on the other hand, it's not a big number because the nation has 50 million students. And if we add up everything here, plus all the great work Brent and Lennon and their colleagues are doing, most teachers are still working in a one teacher, one classroom model. So it's really exciting to see folks on this webinar because we all need to be moving towards a world where every teacher is part of a team. Every teacher has opportunities to advance in their career, and every student has the benefits of these models. So y'all can play a big role in that. 6,600 teachers around the country are on these teams that are led by teachers who have been selected because of their high growth learning with students before and their leadership competencies. So they can lead a team of adults that might range from 3 to 8. It's not a big team, so they can really get to know each teacher and really support them every day being effective in their classrooms. That leads, according to third-party studies, to 4.5 extra months, an extra half year of learning growth per year for students in reading and math when their teachers are on these teams. So that really is extending that great teaching across to more students. The pay is really important in the opportunity culture model. We want to create a career path for teachers where they can advance, earn quite a bit more, and not have to leave the classroom. And so you can see the average stipend around the country is $13,500. It gets as high as $20,000 in some districts if you're leading a team of 6 to 8 other teachers. And so that is a real change in your career, something that could let you stay in teaching, which you love. And then finally, just some quick numbers that I think Ashley's going to delve into a little more. The teachers are really satisfied with this model and want it to continue in their schools. Let's click and I'll say a little bit more about, whoops, I just said that. So 99% of multi-classroom leaders wanting their model to continue. Let's click again. Actually, Ashley, why don't I turn it back to you to go through these slides about the teachers, having been one yourself.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was a multi-classroom leader educator in one of the first opportunity culture districts to implement. And so I can say firsthand that this model truly changed the trajectory of our school. It transformed it from school culture to the way that teachers, were coached and supported, and really just created a culture of coaching throughout the building. And so what this is leading us to is to finding that This is a change that teachers love. And so every year we administer an annual survey to really gauge the perception of how this is going in buildings. And here is what we're finding. Teachers in opportunity culture schools are consistently telling us that the support they receive truly makes a difference in their day-to-day work. And so 99% of MCL educators want to continue in their role next year. 91% of all opportunity culture staff are saying the same. And the vast majority agree that the support that they get really improves their instructional practice and helps to maintain high professional standards. And so, what we're seeing is that this is not just about a model, it's really about creating the kind of environment where teachers feel supported, they feel empowered, and proud of their work every single day. And so when teachers feel supported and they see their impact, it shows, even in how they talk about the profession to others. And so multi-classroom leaders were more than twice as likely as other teachers to recommend teaching as a career. And educators in all opportunity culture model roles were almost twice as likely to do the same. And so that is just truly, truly impactful. Gonna toss it over to Brian to talk more about the student outcomes aspect of it.
Yes, and this slide shows some retention impacts in one district with teachers more likely to stay. But yeah, the next slide goes a little more into these student results that I talked about briefly. So if you can click one more here, you'll see that this is a kind of results of a couple of third-party studies that I can chat the link to as well. And you can read the actual studies. But the idea here is that when teachers join these teams, they're kind of a typical range of teachers. Their growth with students is about 50th percentile on average. But once they join these teams, their growth jumps up to about the 77th percentile on average. That's what their students are achieving in their classrooms. And what that means is this team structure with that teacher leader is able to create top quartile learning for all the kids that are served by the team. And that translates into about an extra half year of learning per year. Then I'm just going to show one more here, which is to say that when we look, this isn't from the third-party studies, this is just looking at state test score data that we can see across the country. About 93% of schools and opportunity culture models are Title I schools. When we look at those that are implementing school-wide, so they're going all the way, and they're in their fourth year of implementation, so they got some experience under their belts, they're 80% more likely to have high growth in their school, in their state accountability system, than non-OC Title I schools. So it's a really powerful tool for moving up student learning. And then just to close out, I wanted to say a couple of words about how this fits in with apprenticeships and residencies. And because what we're really trying to create here is something that's great for students, but also transforms the whole teacher pipeline from making the job more attractive. So different people will come into the profession over time, creating sustainable paid residencies and apprenticeships. Talk a little bit more about that in a sec. Providing a lot more guidance and support for early career staff, which U.S. schools are notoriously poor at doing, and even though there's a lot of effort to change that. Paid advancement for the experienced teachers so they can stay in teaching while earning more and moving up. All the professional development that goes on within these teams. Ashley mentioned team reach, the potential for paraprofessionals to play a bigger tutoring role. Also help schools not have to hire as many unqualified staff if they're having trouble filling their vacancies. And then finally, the pipeline can continue with a subset of teacher leaders becoming the next principals and having had much more instructional leadership experience when they get there. So there's a whole pipeline there. And then the final slide I'll show is about the apprenticeship and residency piece of this. So it's so inspiring to see how these teams have made it possible, as Bren and Lennon talked about, to embed aspiring teachers on teams. Teacher leaders with their high growth selection process are then their mentors. And we know from research that having a teacher mentor as a student teacher who had high growth makes you more likely to have high growth. They get real jobs on these teams as well. They're not sitting in the back of the classroom watching other people teach, but instead they are contributing to student learning right away by playing mostly a tutoring role, but while also observing, being observed, and learning on the job from the mentor as well as the other team members. And then finally, because schools are reorganizing their budgets to pay for these new positions, it's all funded within existing budgets potentially. And that includes both the pay and benefits of the apprentice, as well as the pay and benefits of the mentor and then what they're being paid extra to take on that role. So this is going on in a lot of districts that have opportunity culture models. The very first registered teacher apprenticeship that David helped get going in Clarksville, Montgomery, blended MCL teams with apprenticeships. We see several districts in Texas doing this, and there's a bill in the North Carolina legislature that would grow apprenticeships specifically within districts pursuing this kind of strategic staffing. So bringing these two together is really compelling, and hopefully a lot of people on the call can participate in that. And I'll stop. We can come back to this, Ashley, maybe at later in the call. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for sharing more about opportunity culture and the work that you all are doing across the country. I can personally attest to the power of opportunity culture and the model that you all have shared and the impact that it has and continues to have on school districts, as two of my previous school districts implemented opportunity culture with embedded residencies and have extended that to apprenticeships as well. So thank you for presenting that today. And now I'd like to take the opportunity, if all of you want to come off mute and turn on your cameras, we want to further the conversation, answer some of the questions in the chat, and I have a few questions teed up as well. Hopefully everyone on the call has a solid foundation and understanding of what strategic school staffing is and how you could potentially embed it within your talent strategies. But like I said, I'd like to broaden the conversation by posing a few questions. I'd encourage attendees to also submit questions in the Q&A feature of Zoom here. I know some of you have already done that, and I really appreciate that. So let me just first kick it over to the ASU team, Brent or Lennon. What do you see as the main benefit, or maybe the couple of top benefits of strategic school staffing?
We're pretty unapologetic about the models, these models, in much the same way that Ashley and Brian described. They've got to be better for both our young learners and for our educators. And so the benefits for me, right? They make the job of being an educator more doable. They allow educators to lean into their superpowers. They make a job that is just like, as I watch Abbott Elementary and I'm like, oh, like that seems like a totally rad job. You get to hang out with all these people all the time, right? And it's just not true. You're usually alone by yourself in the classroom. And so we see this, like we walk into schools and there's a palpable sense of joy. For the educators who get to work with people much more closely, and also for the students. And I think that for me is the other key piece of this. We have an idealized version of kind of a romantic notion that, like, yes, like I've got my teacher, my one teacher, especially in elementary school, which is so often true, and it's great. And sometimes it's totally the opposite. And it's like, I have to suffer through 179 more days of being with this person. And it's just like, some people don't click. And when you bring a team of educators around a shared roster of kids, not only do you, are you able to center relationships differently. And we got some questions in the chat around high school. This works in high school as well. The models look different. But imagine a team of teachers that know each kid by name and are served by strength and need, and that those high school or junior high educators are talking all the time about that shared roster of kids. You consider relationships in such a different and more powerful way. And then you can help to make sure that the right kid is with the right educator at the right time. And what we're finding, right, is that every single person who is a caring adult wrapping around kids has something to offer. And we try to create the systems and structures that allow the right educator to get with the right kid at the right time. And what we find is that's wildly better, unapologetically, for both teachers and for kids, educators and kids.
I love that. I love expanding the notion from teacher to educator. and that every adult in the building has an impact on student outcomes. Also like the notion that as just human beings, we crave being a part of a team. And so strategic school staffing models allow for that and allow you to collaborate more frequently with the other adults that are around you. And to your point, to specifically meet the needs of individual kids. So talk about personalized learning and meeting the needs of every student, and doing that not only through like digital resources, but also through who is actually working with a student every single day. So yeah, thanks for expanding on that. Appreciate that. Brian or Ashley, I'd love to give you an opportunity to expand on that, or what are your opinions on the benefits of implementing school staff or strategic school staffing?
Yeah, so I think one of the first benefits that really pops out for a lot of people whenever they see opportunity culture models and other strategic school staffing initiatives is what it could mean for teachers in helping to make the teaching profession a more attractive profession, helping them to know that they can have this career ladder, right? So if I want to earn more typically as a teacher, I have to go into school administration or I have to look into district leadership. But with these models, you can stay connected to the classroom and earn more and reach more students. The real benefit for me, though, just having been in one of these roles, is seeing the impact that it has on students. And so when I was in one of these roles, I was at a middle school and we had students coming to us reading, on a fourth grade level, right? And so having implemented this, in a middle school, we implemented in sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade. Those students were able to catch up, right? And so if you're coming into middle school reading at a fourth grade level, you're not reading at that sixth grade level. Through these models, you can not only grow the year that you're supposed to grow, but that extra half year of learning. So by the time you get to eighth grade, you are not only reading on grade level, but a little bit above, right? So that when you go to high school, you can be more than caught up. And that is the true significance for me in seeing, the change that it has on students. Students are able to, read and they're able to perform math at high levels. And really what that means is that they're setting themselves up to really being able to operate in our complex world. And so that's the true benefit for me.
I just add one thing here, which is one thing I love about the slides that Brent and Lennon showed is they show that once you have a team in place, especially with a team leader who can guide and organize, you can add a lot of things onto that structure. It creates a kind of a structure that then you can build on. And so as a country, there's a lot of really challenging things we're trying to do. We're trying to implement high standards instruction for all students. We're trying to implement new practices like the science of reading. We're trying to change the mental health outcomes of kids. We're doing a lot. It's a challenging time for everyone. What kind of organizational structure is going to help us do those hard things? And I would argue this team structure with team leader is that structure, because it can create the support everyone needs to be successful rather than having every teacher individually have to pick up and learn new things and implement them well within their own classroom. So whatever's on your mind as a high priority for your schools and districts, I'd suggest put this foundation in place. And then whatever it is you're trying to do now and in the future, you'll be much more able to do that effectively.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. And it sounds like just from listening to the benefits, Brent, that you mentioned, Ashley, that you mentioned, and Brian, that additional context there, that this initiative or this model really could serve to impact recruitment of folks into the profession, allow for the career progression in some of those teacher leader roles, if you will, without them having to leave the classroom. If they're so called to be a principal, then that's awesome. But if they want to stay in the classroom, if that's their passion, then they can do so and earn more. As a matter of fact, I mentioned that a couple of the school districts that I previously worked for implemented strategic school staffing, and we had teachers that were making six figures, and in Texas, that's a big deal. And so as a matter of fact, they had the opportunity to become a principal, and they chose to stay in the classroom. They're excellent teachers. And so the students win in that regard, because they're not only staying in the classroom, impacting their students, but they're also leading a team of students. And so, or a team of teachers that are impacting students. And so really all the students win. So I love that. So we're definitely a recruitment strategy, a retention strategy, as I just mentioned, because oftentimes these folks don't want to leave the classroom. So that's great. And then you have the student outcome benefit as well. So it really is an all-encompassing strategy that I think that districts should really consider for sure. So we mentioned throughout, or you all mentioned throughout your presentations, how this model, the strategic staffing model, can really dovetail with other talent initiatives. So just curious if any of you would like to expand on that. Maybe I'll kick it over to Brian and Ashley first. How can this kind of strategic staffing strategy dovetail with other talent initiatives? You mentioned a little bit about apprenticeships, but just curious if you'd like to hit on that anymore.
Yeah, we're really excited about how these models can be kind of a perfect environment for learning on the job, both for new teachers, but also for candidates and for even people earlier in the pipeline. Like I think, like Lennon mentioned, high school students or others coming into these teams. It's a structure that gives you a great place to learn, a great place to get paid, because these schools are already rethinking their resources, so they can decide, we're going to create new positions that could be potentially filled by paraeducators, but could be potentially filled by candidates for teachers, or paraeducators who are talent or candidates to be teachers in the future, and then give them a real job in the school where they can contribute immediately to student learning. It's not a wait for a year and then start, but rather day one they can be contributing. So we're excited about the prospects of that, and love to see a lot more apprenticeship and residency programs paired with school staffing changes at the same time.
I love that. Brent, do you want to add on anything? Just a yes and?
No, but Lennon does.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the experiences of high schoolers in a Grow Your Own program. I saw Elena Adams, who's the former principal of the Phoenix Union Ed Prep Academy in Arizona, so local to us. But what I think really has unlocked our Grow Your Own programs and thinking differently is that if I have high schoolers who are now on a team of educators, can I actually give them a set of roles and responsibilities that they can do on a team rather than just having them sit in the back and observe? Same for teacher candidates. Are we able to rethink how teacher preparation works if we have teams of educators who now have distributed expertise, differentiated roles and responsibilities? And so one of the things that our teacher candidates and our high schoolers notice very quickly, I see Liz pop this question also in the Q&A, is that it's not just about content knowledge anymore. It's about being able to collaborate with other people. We don't really learn that in teacher prep very often. It's about being able to be flexible with the way that you approach a team of people with an idea, and being okay with compromise. It's essentially all of the things that all of these portrait of a graduate skills have been saying across the country that we want our high schoolers and our elementary school kids to start learning in addition to academic standards. It's those kinds of skills that we're finding are actually much more needed when you start to share a larger roster of students, to co-plan around that roster of students, and to think about learners as learners and not just as an English student or a math student, especially in high school. We're actually taking a whole child approach because we're centering learners and not content, especially in our secondary models, but definitely in our elementary, who have been doing this. Of course, they've been thinking about whole child in much bigger and broader ways for decades. But I think those are some of the ways that we can rethink talent pipelines and how talent pipelines are perceiving this model.
Excellent. So, industry across the country is starting to look at high schoolers and the CTE pathways and preparing them for post-secondary and a career. And so it would behoove us as educators, as systems, to do the same and to look at exposure for our high schools or for our high school students to being an educator. And so, yeah, and it can absolutely just complement strategic staffing and apprenticeships or pre-apprenticeships. So, all right, I'm going to actually ask some questions from the Q&A. So one of them that I think Brian, you or Ashley could speak to is, can you speak to how the opportunity culture model could actually be implemented in a rural school, a small rural school?
Yeah, so it looks the same as it does in many of our contexts. So one of the key things that we really promote is that whatever roles you are implementing, they should be able to be funded within the regular school budget. And so what we do is we partner with schools, with district teams to really look into those school budgets for principals. And we look to see how each role is funded and where we might have opportunity to create different funding for stipends to support multi-classroom leaders or what we call reach associates. These are our highly advanced paraprofessional roles. We partner with schools to look at their staffing to say, you know, are you anticipating any vacancies soon? Or do you have a history of vacant positions, a position that's just really, really hard to fill? And then we look to see, where is your most pressing need now? Let's start there for where we want to place a multi-classroom leader team and then scale up to reach 75% of your building within 3 years. And so it's a really customizable approach, really leaning on our 5 core principles of designing within the unique context of your school, making sure that all students are reached with highly effective educators, and doing that within a regular school budget.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. You know, it's kind of similar to what we say here at National Center for Grow Your Own in supporting or implementing apprenticeships. You really have to look at your funding sources and braid those funding sources together for a sustainable approach. So, Lennon or Brent, I'd love to ask you the same question. Experience implementing strategic school staffing in small or in rural school systems.
I've like done a really annoying thing for you, Ashley. I've dropped some slides into the slide deck that if you want to share those to make it super crisp.
I'd love to
Slides 30,
in just a second when I figure that out.
slides 32 and 33. I mean, the headline is what we're trying to always do it with Next Education Workforce is build a team of educators that wrap around the shared roster of kids. And if you went to or work in a school like I did in the mountains of rural northern Arizona, where there were 13 kids at a grade level, that's a bit of a head scratch about how you're going to build a team. You know, like it's not 4 third grade teachers, it's like 1 and not even 1, because they might have 3rd and 4th grade. And so this is my school my elementary school or K-8 school rounded up for easy math from 13, 15 to 20. This is pretty typical of the way that you might staff a small rural or just a small school generally. And so, okay, what would a team-based approach look like in that sort of model? If we go to the next slide, what we see is I can't quite figure out how to do this. Maybe Ashley and Brian have cracked this nut about how you move away from a 1 teacher, 1 classroom model in a super small place. But for us, we've had to figure out ways to bring together multi-age groups of kids, and you build the teams around. Now, of course, and even in some of our larger, more urban environments where they might have 4 third grade teachers, we've seen some of them. This is the flexibility in the models. They've created mixed aged teams, so that maybe they're serving 3rd and 4th grade students, because it turns out that kids, just because they're in a particular grade level, doesn't mean they're equally good at all of the standards, also in math, also in ELA, right? And so it just acknowledges that a more competency-based approach here can actually serve us quite well. And so in that small school, these are the sorts of things that we often see happening, right? So kinder first and second, or first and second are coming together. If you're like the school that I went to, like it was real hard to find a math teacher. And so at the junior high level. And so maybe the math teacher is beaming in, and we're leveraging like a digital learning facilitator. Not the ideal situation, but people, we're just trying to figure out how to make it work, and try to make this a profession that people want to run into as opposed to from. And we think that strategic school staffing models like those that we've got at ASU and that Opportunity Culture has are part of that solution.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing and for popping those slides in. I think it's helpful to have that visual. Just curious, with the last kind of 4 minutes that we have, if there are any closing thoughts, if an individual or a district is really interested in learning more or implementing these models in their school systems, what could be some actionable next steps for them? Brian and Ashley, I'll toss it to you first.
Yeah, so we offer district design and school design services. So we have a team of consultants who can partner directly with you to really dig into your unique context. And we really separate this into two phases. And so, Ashley, if you could pull up slide 51 of the slideshow, that really illustrates our district design and our school design processes. And so one of the things that we do is we partner directly with folks for district design. So it's just the next slide board. Yep. So during the district design process, there's a number of different decisions that folks will need to make. Setting parameters of around what the roles might look like. What do the stipend levels need to look like? How can we ensure that this is financially sustainable? And so we make all of these decisions with the key players that you see here on the right. So that would be the superintendent, folks in curriculum and instruction, HR talent, finance, accountability, and communications. Once those overall district parameters are set, then we bring in different school teams who would love to roll out these models. And so the school teams create a staffing plan, a sustainability strategy so that they can make sure that these roles can be funded within regular school budgets. A bill schedule, oftentimes it means, we have to get creative with scheduling so that folks can have enough time to fulfill all the different aspects of the role. We also dig into a selection process to identify the strongest candidates, as well as those schools get a chance to present their plans back to the district team for approval. And that includes the school design team that you see on the right, so the principal and trusted leaders throughout the building. And so if you can click one more slide, we do have a number of QR codes available if you all would like to contact us. And so we have QR codes to contact us. We have a free monthly info session where we dig deeper into our opportunity culture principles. We have a website with robust resources. And we also have a LinkedIn page where we are always posting the latest research, shouting out our certified schools, as well as sharing how you all can connect with us throughout the year.
Great, thank you. Brent or Lennon, just real quickly.
Yeah. I think, yeah, look at that. Lynn and I basically have the exact same link for you. This is where we've got a lot of opportunities. Don't take our word for it. Come out for a visit. We have, it's not Beyonce or Taylor Swift, but they do sell out. Come and check out the work. Talk to real live kids, real live teachers that are doing this work. It's a ton of fun. Join 99 other people on a bus and come see the work in action. The other thing that you can do is just email John Roberts, not the Supreme Court Justice, but the head of partnerships for the Next Education Workforce. If you want something crisp, just send him a one-line email. Said, hey, I heard Brent and Lennon talking about Next Education Workforce. Tell me more. Literally, that's all you need to do. John will figure it out. It's so great to be here. I love presenting with Ashley and Brian, and just have such just wild and mad respect for the work that they've been leading for such a long period of time. And we continue to learn with and from them, and Ashley and Benjamin, David and others, National Center for Grow Your Own. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate you all sharing today and love this notion that strategic school staffing is really part of a comprehensive strategy to mitigate some of our talent challenges and have positive student outcomes. So thank you. We really appreciate Brent, Lennon, Brian, and Ashley for presenting today. This has been a wealth of knowledge. As we wrap up today's session, again, extend a heartfelt thank you to you all for presenting and sharing your expertise, your leadership, and the information and the knowledge that you have is invaluable as we prepare, support, and sustain educators in our workforce. So thank you for joining us today, everyone. And we look forward to continuing this conversation in the future. We love our partnerships with you all, and together we're building a stronger and more sustainable educator workforce. So on behalf of our NCGYO team, we wish you a wonderful Friday and a restful Memorial Day weekend. So bye now.